to Lesson 2 video notes on potential energy. During this video, students will understand that a system of objects may contain stored or potential energy depending on their relative positions, such as you see on this roller coaster. Just a reminder, when you watch this video, make sure you have headphones and put away anything that's distracting. Make sure you have your notes paper ready. Be sure to pause the video at any time, and you can always come back and rewatch it if there's anything you missed. Remember, we are going to include a secret keyword, so make sure you're listening to all of the video and write down the keyword when you hear it on your paper. Make sure you have your notes before starting this. We're going to be doing this middle section of your notes, 2.3 on potential energy. Let's go ahead and start with a video from Tim and Moby.
Hey Moby, check. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna show you this ice cube. Kinda looks like a shoe. Dear Tim and Moby, when does something have potential energy? From Miley. Well, that jar had potential energy before Moby knocked it over. When an object has the potential for movement, it has potential energy. It's a form of energy that's stored in an object because of its position. If an object's position is unstable, it has the potential to move. If the object does move, its potential energy is converted to kinetic energy. That's the energy of motion. All energy is either potential or kinetic. The difference between the two is that only moving objects have kinetic energy. A swing is a good way to see how kinetic and potential energy work. To get going, you have to raise the swing above its normal position. That gives the swing, and you, potential energy. When you step off, that potential energy is released and transformed into kinetic energy. As you swing back up, that kinetic energy becomes potential energy again. Skateboarding is another way to see potential energy in action. Take your board to the top of a hill and you're putting potential energy to work. The higher you climb, the more your potential energy increases. On top of the hill, you have a whole lot of potential energy, even when you're standing still. When you raise something above its original position, it has the ability to fall, because the force of gravity pulls us down towards Earth. What goes up must come down, or can come down at least. Height is one factor that affects potential energy, and the other is mass. That's the amount of stuff an object is made of. The more massive an object is, the more potential energy it'll have. Because Moby has more mass than that girl, he also has more potential energy at the top of the hill. Right, if you want to give an object more potential energy, you can increase its mass or its height. That'll change its gravitational potential energy, the kind caused by gravity. But this isn't the only way to store energy in an object through its position. If you've ever played with magnets, you've come across magnetic potential energy. Like Earth's gravitational field, a magnet's field can move objects without touching them. Magnetic fields pull opposite poles together. So, holding north and south poles apart stores potential energy. If you let go, they move together, so that potential energy turns into kinetic energy. It works in reverse, too. Like poles repel each other, so pushing them together increases their potential energy. Electric fields and electric potential energy work in a very similar way. Opposite electric charges attract, and like charges repel. When you take off your hat and your hair stands up, it's because your hair and the hat are oppositely charged. So your hair is attracted to the hat. Pulling them apart increases their electric potential energy and makes the charges less stable. Sometimes the instability causes that energy to be released as a little shock. Remember, all forms of potential energy involve things in unstable positions. Now you've got it. Potential, kinetic.
Tim, what are you boys doing with my mason jar collection?
Nothing, Dad. Cut it out.
Wow. Breaking things sounds fun, but it's not. One thing that Tim talked about was electricity and magnetism, which we'll get into later on this year. So if you like that information about magnetism, we will be doing some stuff with magnets later on. But let's get back to our notes. So make sure we're at the top here. Potential energy can be shortened to PE. Make sure you write that in. PE is how we abbreviate potential energy. Please make sure you're still listening for our keyword. It's coming up in a little bit. In your notes, we know that potential energy is the energy due to interactions between objects due to distance changes. Notice the distance between the ground and something raised up high changed. So the amount of potential energy, or PE, depends on the positions of those objects. Make sure you write these down in your notes. Continuing on, I know in the video they mentioned electrical and magnetic potential energy, but here I'd like you to tell me about elastic potential energy, which is another type of potential energy. This type of energy is when you have some energy stored in objects that are either compressed, like squeezing, or you stretch them, like a rubber band. Please go ahead and write these in your notes. Later on, we do have a should-do lab with rubber bands, so hopefully you can get your work done and get around to doing that lab. Continuing on, we talked about gravitational potential energy, which is the stored energy due to objects in a gravitational field, such as any object here on Earth. So there are two things that this gravitational potential energy is going to depend on. So one of them is position, where is it located, and the second one is mass. So this first one we have, if something is down low, it has low potential energy. But if we raise it up high to a higher position away from Earth's surface, the potential energy will increase as we increase that height. Now, if you've been listening carefully, I'm going to give you today's key word. So please write this down on your paper. Today's key word is pumpkin spice latte. So write that down. It's okay if you don't know how to spell it correctly. And finally, at the bottom of our notes, the second thing that potential energy depends on is mass. So here we have a picture of a backpack that's not very full. As you carry it, it has less potential energy than a backpack that is more heavy, has a lot more mass that you're having to carry. So more mass equals more potential energy. All right, thank you for watching. If you didn't hear the keyword, make sure you review this video and listen for that keyword so you can write it down on your notes. If you need to review any of this information about potential energy, please come on back. Also, make sure you put your notes in a place you will not lose them.